Hey, how you doing? Good to have you here today. Um, End of a day for me. As you can see, someone is here joining me, somebody who just woke up from a nap. This is Gunner, the dog, my Rhodesian Ridgeback. He's out here joining me in the woods today. And so we're both glad to have you here. It's been a crazy week, crazy last few weeks. I have so many clients right now, as well as a friend or two, family member or two, coming to me with this concern. Oh, now Gunner's gonna hit the tripod. Nope. Coming to me with this concern that, Sven, I feel so pushed in my life in this particular area. I feel so pushed, and I feel like I'm at the point where I got to do something that I really don't want to do. Or they've come to me after the fact and they said, Sven, I did something I really didn't want to have to do. I did this thing that I'm not proud of, or I did this thing that I'm ashamed of. Not because it was an intrinsically bad thing per se, but because it went against, or if they're about to do it, it goes against how I see myself, and it goes against who I want to be or who I am. I had clients who have had to stand up to people or file a lawsuit that they didn't want to file, they really hoped to avoid, or fire employees, key employees, or whatever it is. But in one of the threads running through each of the cases is that each of these, well, there are a few threads, each of these persons sees themselves as a good person, a nice person, a kind person. In fact, one of them flat out said to me, a client this week flat out said to me, Sven, I try to go through life as sort of an instrument of joy and kindness and love. I'm not a hippie or anything, Sven, but I just try to be like kind, really kind, like all the time. I have another one who says, Sven, I'm a flat out pacifist. I don't fucking like doing harm to anything or anyone. Another one who was a heavy hitter, very, very heavy hitter in academia, said to me, Sven, I just hate the idea of having to be this person that I'm considering being. So in all of the cases, the person perceives themselves as a good person and a kind person, and I can say back to them that, in all honesty, I see them as that too, based on their past patterns of behavior and past words, past actions. But the other thread running through it is in each case, again, whether it was a client or friend considering taking an action that they didn't feel good about, or having taken an action that they didn't feel good about, in every case, the person felt pushed to a point that exceeded their kindness tolerance. They just felt pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. I remember when I was a kid and into my 20s, I always felt that I had a really long fuse, that I would never snap on someone. And I had to. When you're big, when you're a guy, first of all, but when you're big, you are socialized to contain your energy. You have to. Otherwise, you really come off as intimidating and you scare people and so forth. So the only time I would ever be aggressive or stand up to someone, really stand up to someone, was if I felt pushed and pushed and pushed. I felt like I had a very long fuse. But if you push me long enough and hard enough and with malice, eventually I will engage. And you don't want me to engage. Okay, well, it's the same way with these clients, except they really don't want to engage. It is the idea of taking some very strong, aggressive, or confrontational action goes very much against who they are. Hold on. Gunner! He's getting just to the edge of the property. He knows that he's not allowed to go beyond that, but sometimes he needs that reminder. Anyway. And so these people, these clients, and so many of them lately, it's like they're all wrestling with the same thing, is how it feels bad. I feel bad, Sven. I feel guilty, or I just feel, I hate that I acted this way, or I hate that I'm considering acting this way. I so don't want to be this person. And it's, as I said, it's like I've had a flood of this particular issue with so many people lately. And, you know, one of the quick things I fire out there, I sort of volley out there, and I don't have an agenda with my clients. My goal, other than to simply help them be who they feel called to be in their gut, in their soul, in that moment, in this period, or in this situation. I don't have an agenda. I don't fucking care. At the end of the day, I'm gonna have a glass of bourbon and a cigar and fuck the world, because I have to do that. I have to detach. And furthermore, when a client comes to me, I always tell them, what you do when you walk out that door of my office, I support you 100%. But in the confines of this office, my job is to push you. My job is to challenge you, to help you see your blind spots, ask you the questions you're not asking. That aside, so one of the things I volley out there in this particular situation where someone really feels pushed, where someone is really just like having to do something it's not that they even dread doing it, it's worse than that. It goes against who they are and who they want to be in this world. And so one of the things that I volley out there is the simple fact of the matter is there are those times in life when a bully has to be punched in the nose. Fact. Okay? And I don't necessarily mean physically, I'm stating that metaphorically, though certainly there are those times when physically someone is being physically aggressive and they have to be, there has to be a brushback pitch, so to speak. And I tell people about that experience when Neville Chamberlain, before World War II really breaks out, goes and meets with Adolf Hitler. And he comes back to Great Britain. He was the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And he comes back, gets off the plane, and he's waving what's known as the famous piece of paper that says that, where Hitler said, I won't invade. And it ended up just being a fucking empty promise, right? And it's known as the famous piece of paper. That's all it was. It was just, and the message out of that, the learning out of that for historians, for people, is that you can't placate a bully. It doesn't work. They'll run all over you. That sometimes there are those people, or there are those situations, there are those times where you have to stand up. Though your knees may be shaking, your palms may be sweating, you have to stand up, right? So I've been dealing with these clients this week, and I offer that out there sort of as a volley for something for us to sort of ping off of, to talk about, to say, well, it doesn't quite work for me, or yes, that works, whatever. And the simple fact of the matter is, Carl Jung talked about that each one of us has a shadow side, and I'm not a psychologist. He's just a preacher's kid. I'm a preacher's kid, so I read about a preacher's kid. Anyway, Carl Jung used to say that basically we all have an aspect of our personality that we haven't fully integrated into who we really are. It's this part we're avoiding. He calls it the shadow side. In each home, very often, there is a particular emotion, feeling, action that was not allowed. And what Carl Jung says, or each person maybe got a different message of something that wasn't allowed. Your aggressiveness isn't allowed. I don't want to have your tears in this home. I can't handle your sadness. No one cares about your sadness. Whatever it was, we have an aspect that we're not allowed to express, or that we fear expressing, or that we consider dangerous. And until we integrate that into who we are, we're not a complete person. And so I think of it simply as a tool belt, and I talk about this with my clients. I said, there are times in life where we are called to do, or to be, or to say something that we don't think of ourselves as. It's a situational thing. Maybe it's a one-off, or maybe it's a very rare occurrence. But the bottom line is, so in other words, it's a tool you have in your tool belt. It's not the tool you go around wielding the most. It's not the tool you consider yourself wielding best, but it's a tool in the tool belt because there are those times and there are those places where that tool is the only tool that is going to work. It doesn't mean that is the whole of your identity, but yes, simple fact of the matter is, it is one aspect of your identity. And with some of my clients, they really see themselves as wanting to be sort of instruments of peace and love in the world, and want to be surrounded by, just honest people, kind people, good people. And what I often tell them is, by standing up, particularly the ones in business, by standing up and by shutting down wrongdoing, you send a message not just to the universe, but to future people that you're doing business with, and present people you're doing business with, that you don't tolerate bullshit. that you won't tolerate having someone be aggressive. You won't tolerate someone trying to take advantage of you, that you will shut that shit down. And what the effect of that then is, when they get that message, is, oh shit, I'm gonna play straight with this person. I'm gonna play kind. I'm gonna sort of operate, just peacefully as gentlemen, so to speak, or gentlewomen, as it were. And so by standing up that time when you don't want to, it has the effect of creating more long-term peace or more long-term kindness. So there's that. And then I also throw out this sort of last notion that I think a lot of people can identify. Not the quote that I pull it from per se, but just the whole idea. I don't very often get religious, as you know. I'll cite different religions, and in this case, I'm citing Christianity, but I'm not selling Christianity, all right? I'm just citing it because it's really interesting to consider. When Jesus was giving his Sermon on the Mount, the traditional one, blessed are the this, blessed are that, blessed for they shall inherit the earth, right? They're also known as the Beatitudes. Anyway, one of the ones that he says is, blessed are the peacemakers, which Monty Python in The Life of Brian satirizes. Some people are way far away from Jesus and they're trying to hear a Sermon on the Mount, and he says, blessed are the peacemakers. And one woman turns to a man, or vice versa, and says, blessed are the cheesemakers. Why the cheesemakers? They're a bloody sorry lot. Why would he bless the cheesemakers? Anyway, Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. And when I used to preach on this, or now as I'm talking to you about it, I really draw a distinction, or I bring in another word that helps draw a distinction and helps indicate where you might go when confronted with this situation where you might have to take an aggressive or a strong or a bold or a tough action when you don't see yourself as that. And Jesus talks about blessed are the peacemakers, and I draw the distinction between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. A peacekeeper is someone who will do anything to keep the peace. And the most sort of cliche example is in the home of an alcoholic or in the home of an abuser. Everyone's walking on eggshells. Just keep the peace. Just don't do anything that'll piss off the ogre. Don't wake the angry giant. Let's just keep the peace. Even if I and you and all of us around him or her have to eat shit all day, every day, let's eat shit, because at least it keeps his peace. Because when the ogre blows up, it's fucking chaos, mayhem, and pain and suffering all the way around. Come here, Gunner, don't whine. It's unbecoming. Come here. So that's a peacekeeper. Someone who doesn't want to do anything except keep the problem sort of at bay. But a peacemaker is something very different. A peacemaker is the person who recognizes a problem, recognizing that problem isn't going to change without, in those rare cases, bold, aggressive, even tough action. And the peacemaker says, fuck, I don't want to fucking do this. I hate doing this shit, but it's got to be done. A peacemaker is someone who is willing to take the tough, violent, difficult action necessary to return us to a state of equanimity and peace, and where we're all fucking getting along, where it's not just about the fucking tyrant in the room. A peacemaker is someone who's willing to kick ass and give someone a beat down, metaphorically speaking, to return us to a state of where we're all working to get along. But peacekeeping is where we're all just sort of, keeping our peace and walking on eggshells because we don't want to upset the tyrant in the room. And that doesn't fucking last long. And I believe most people can identify with this, because I believe most of us have been in situations or relationships where there's a fucking asshole and we just sort of tap dance around it. And we don't want to have to engage the person. We don't want to have to deal with this person, but they're just, when you placate a tyrant, it just gets fucking worse. When you placate a bully, it just gets worse and worse. They take and they take and they take and they just expand the boundaries, recognizing no boundaries of everyone else. And it just sucks. And so the peacemaker is the one who says, well, I got this tool in my tool belt and I really fucking hate having to use it, but I'm about to smash you in the fucking face, you dumb fuck. I'm so sick of your shit. And I'm speaking metaphorically. I'm not talking about literally smashing someone in the face, though there are those rare times. So you don't have to identify with the violence you are committing. You don't have to identify and take it as your sole identity, this harming of another person that you don't want to do, but they've given you no other option. You don't have to see that as your full identity, but it does behoove you to see it as a part, even if it's a small part, that if I need to, I can do the ugly task, the dirty deed. I can do that which needs to be done, which I'd rather not do. So that's the question to you today. What is that shitty, ugly thing that you're being called to do? The really fucking thing that you don't see as sort of intrinsic to or native to your personality, that in fact is part of who you are. Maybe it's a small part, but it's one more tool you have in your tool belt. What is it you're feeling called to do, and do you have the balls to do it? Knowing that it's not going to take over your whole personality. You're not going to become this always rough, coarse person, but that the shit has to be done anyway. And you stand up and you do it, and you can mourn about it, you can cry about it, and that's all right. Get the pain out of your system, but in the end, simple fact of the matter is there are those times in life when we got to do shit that we'd really rather not do. And so I applaud you for looking at and wrestling with the difficulty of that situation, and I applaud you, if you so choose, for standing up and doing what needs to be done, because we all have to learn to get along in this world. And if someone doesn't know how, and if they don't respond to kindness, if they don't de-escalate and just become a good, normal person interacting in life based on kindness, then unfortunately, if they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, yes, sometimes more difficult measures and bigger measures have to be taken. And I support you in that if that's what you're choosing. Anyway, I love you. Have a kick-ass evening. I know I will. Gunner, I don't know. It's up in the air with him. He'll probably take another nap, so I think he's probably doing all right. Have a great evening. Skol.